Alright everybody, welcome back to Conqueror and Commander. Today we're going to be talking about my Rakdos Lord of Riots deck. Before we get going, remember if you go to puremtgo.com and look up Conqueror and Commander, you can see the deck list printed out nicely and neatly here so you can check things out more easily if that's your thing. If not, don't worry about it and we'll just keep going on the client here. First of all, Rakdos is a big flying trampler. It's his second version. The first one was much harder to deal with. This one isn't. He has two things going for him, or negatives possibly. I don't know if you want to call it that. You can't cast him unless somebody's been damaged, and he has the pain cast ability. So there's a couple different ways you can kind of build him. The first is you just kind of ignore the pain cast ability and you just build a control deck with some big fat creatures to help you out. And but that wasn't what I originally tried to do. What I originally tried to do was build in a bunch of like earthquake effects so that there would always be damage spread out there, and put in some life gain effects and siphon soul effects to sort of offset that with stuff like Lockdown Warhammer and Exquisite Blood. And just to go overboard with the hit everybody and fat creatures. And that didn't really work out so well in my initial versions. So instead what I did was sort of built a little bit of more of a control deck that ended up using the pain cast ability to cast some fat. And this is sort of what we came up with. A couple of things before we get going. There are 39 lands in this deck. When I first built it, there was only like 36, and I was always mana screwed. Always. So then I would go up to 39, and I was still mana screwed, and then I went up to 40, and then I was mana flooded. I was land flooded all the time. I'm not sure if the shuffler just hated me or what, but there was no real in-between. So what I ended up doing with my mana base was putting in all the fetch lands that I could with Crucible, so that's why you see Verdant Catacombs in here. And it seemed like sort of a happy medium. I don't know. I was still flooded, and or I was mana screwed. Even with 39 lands, one game I would just be flooded, and the next game I would just be hosed, and it was super frustrating. But you know, that's just the way that MTGO is sometimes. Anyways, before we go on and bitch more about the mana base, let's just talk about the fat that I wanted to cast using the pain cast ability. Some of these are sort of like goofy, like weird creatures, like why the heck am I playing with Scythe Spectre. I'm playing with this card because I've never actually used the card and I just wanted to stick it in the deck. The rest of the stuff is pretty easy, like Inferno Titan, he's just a fat beater. Maga, if you can hit everybody hard, you know, you can take somebody out with Maga. Cryptborn Horror doesn't necessarily use the pain cast ability, but you do have the ability to hit a bunch of people with a lot of damage all at once, and he can come out pretty big as well. Magmatic Force is sort of an enabler and a big fat beater. Karavik, same thing. The two big elephants in the room are Ulamog and Kozilek. What happened when I first started playing this deck was I got milled to death by two different Lazev players, and I didn't have my Eldrazi in the deck. So I decided, you know what, if I'm going to go ahead and avoid being milled, I'm just going to stick these guys in there. And both of these guys are useful because Kozilek obviously draws cards. Ulamog is able to get rid of enchantments and other problem artifacts and stuff like that. But these guys are all kind of like big beaters. If we want to look for the enablers, we've got Price of Progress in here, Ashling, which can hurt people. Acidic Soil, I was running into a ton of Prime Speaker decks that were just ramping out and then playing Boundless Realms, and I was always behind these green decks, and Acidic Soil would definitely hit them more than it would hurt me. Flame Rift is cheap. One of the problems with Rakdos is that a lot of these cards require essentially a 1 card commitment before you can even play Rakdos and then enable his pain cast ability. So I kind of tried to keep those to a minimum. Or I wanted them to be repeatable, like Shepherd of Rot, Piranha Marsh is not repeatable, but it doesn't really cost anything. Psychosis Crawler, it's something that, like, at the beginning of your turn, you're going to make sure and hit everybody for at least 1 damage each, therefore enabling Rakdos. Chandra not only can deal a damage to a player in specific, but can also double up your Flame Rift or Acidic Soil or Price of Progress if you want, or any of the other goofy sorceries and instants you have. Alright, now there's a bunch of other artifact creatures that can be pain casted out for pretty cheap using Rakdos, but they're kind of spread out amongst the other stuff here. This is all the destruction we got going on. A lot of this stuff is pretty typical. Void is a card. Vandal Blast, I love. Void is a card that I always forget doesn't hit enchantments. I'm always like, oh, Void's awesome. It can take care of that enchantment. No, it can't. Just remember that. Spell Bomb is another graveyard hate card. All is Dust gets rid of everything except artifacts. Mortars takes care of a lot of creatures. Slag Storm takes care of a lot of creatures. Blasphemous Act takes care of a lot of creatures. Damnation takes care of a lot of creatures. I had a decent amount of cards that can hurt creatures for a decent amount of damage, and that's why I ended up throwing in a Repercussion here. My deck isn't very creature heavy, and so especially when somebody plays a bunch of tokens and I Blasphemous Act, hopefully that can take care of them. Bajuka Bog is another graveyard hate card. Duplicate is can be a free casting creature removal, and the same with Steel Hellkite. He can come out for free with Rakdos' ability. This is my mana help. I always am behind green decks, so the Bauble will help me keep up. The Kite can help me continuously do land drops. Crucible, I've got all the fetch lands like I already mentioned, so Liliana helps search up land most of the time and sometimes can pump your dudes. Coffers, I'm running with Urborg. Cryptcast actually worked out really well. The Extort ability helped get the pain cast going, and he also worked as a mana doubler. So I really liked that. I'm not sure why Fleshback Marauder is in here. The Marauder should probably be in there. Simulacrum, Soul Ring. So, I've got a decent amount of mana help, on top of the fact that I am running 39 lands. So, we got all that going for us. We do have some tutors. Night Dealings is a card that I never drew once. Ever. And I played this deck a lot. Have no idea why I never drew it. It seemed like it'd be good, but yeah, I just never got it going. Demonic Vampiric. I guess if you really wanted to go hardcore, you could do Grim Tutor and Imperial Seal and a couple other tutors. But I don't think it was really necessary. Here we have our life gain stuff. Sun Droplet, people really hated Sun Droplet. They're like, oh my god, Sun Droplet, and would blow it up when there's bigger, badder targets out there. Whatever. If Sun Droplet's really gonna rock your boat like that, fine. This is all my card draw. Reforce the Soul, Wheel of Fortune. These cards do well when I've got the Psychosis Crawler out. Harvester of Souls. Creatures are going to die with this deck, so the Harvester is going to work out. Graveborn Muse and Bloodgift Demon are going to draw a Phyrexian Arena, and then Skull Clamp. Your creatures aren't always going to live very long. This is sort of my random pile. Charmbreaker Devils is one of the few forms of recursion I've got in this deck, along with Volrath's Stronghold, which I should probably stick over there. Hey, look at Stronghold. Reassembly Skeleton is just a random blocker most of the time, or Skull Clamp food. Rakdos Charm is a nice fun little charm that does a lot of different things. It can exile a graveyard, it can destroy an artifact, or it can do the Pain Cast ability by dealing damage to the creature's controllers. This will really hurt token players. Cataract's Parasite, I was running into a ton of Prime Speaker decks, like I already said, and I thought that this would help, and it kind of did. You know, I did have it out once when I did wheel. So, you know, it's just a goofy little card. I thought I'd throw it in there. And then we got your 39 lands. You know, this deck can be a little controlling, and it can sometimes rush out like big fat creatures every once in a while. What I really wanted to do was look for not only artifacts or artifact creatures that I could pain cast out, but creatures that only had one colored mana in their mana cost, and then like a 5 or a 6 as their colorless in their mana cost. The funny thing is, other than Charmbreaker Devils, there's not really a lot out there. There's like Herald of Leshrac, who's just super slow, but there isn't a lot of stuff like that out there. So anyways, you know, it's kind of a control deck, kind of a beatdown deck. Obviously, Basilisk Collar does well with the Inferno Titan. You know, Rakdos, he's not the easiest guy to build around and have a consistently good deck. You're kind of boned to a lot of the mana ramp that's out there. I wanted this to be more of a goofy fun deck, and it turned into either, oh, I'm dead, or hey, look at me, I'm beating down with Ulamog on turn 4 or something like that. This was a tough deck for me. This was a real tough deck for me. But, you know, it ended up being serviceable as is right now. And so, there we are. Hope you enjoyed the deck. I'm going to show you some games. It was a tough deck. It led to goofy, weird games. There's no other way to describe it other than by showing them to you. So I'm going to show you guys some. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the deck. Go ahead and let me know if you have any comments or questions or ways to better build it. Oh, before I pass all that on, let's take a look at the stats for the deck. 3.82 is pretty high for me in terms of my mana cost. The curve doesn't really curve. It sort of like bumps and jumps all over the place. There is a lot of stuff in the 6 mark. And the 2 10 pluses are my Eldrazi. Heavier on the black than red, but I guess that's to be expected. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know if you got any comments or questions. Thanks a lot.